We're all human. We make mistakes, but sometimes we do things right. Historical figures and celebrities are no different from us. They've done both good and bad. Some of these notorious figures, often associated with unspeakable evil, have also committed acts of good that are often overshadowed by their darker deeds. Below, we look at some surprisingly positive actions taken by some of history's most infamous individuals. 10. Ted Bundy. In 1971, Ted Bundy was just another student at the University of Washington, seemingly living a normal life. He attended classes, cooked for himself, and, like many college students, worked a part-time job. What's truly shocking about this is that Bundy worked at the Seattle Suicide Hotline Center. Yes, the infamous serial killer spent his time encouraging people not to end their lives. Ann Rule, a former police officer and author who worked alongside Bundy at the hotline, once remarked that he took lives but also saved lives. The idea of a future serial killer spending his days preventing suicides seems paradoxical. However, some experts believe this job gave Bundy valuable insights into how to manipulate people. Clinical psychologist Darrell Turner argues that this role helped Bundy understand how to connect with vulnerable individuals, which in turn might have made him a more effective predator. As someone who spent his life manipulating others, Bundy likely used the experience to hone his skills. 9. Ivan the Terrible. When you earn the title the Terrible, you've clearly done some awful things. Ivan the Terrible certainly did, from executing civilians to seizing lands to murdering his own son. His reign over Russia from 1547 to 1584 was marked by cruelty and bloodshed, giving him a reputation that has persisted through the centuries. However, despite his brutal reputation, Ivan also made significant contributions to Russia's development. He established the first Russian parliament, reformed church practices, and led military campaigns that expanded Russian territory. Ivan's campaigns extended Russia's reach into regions that were critical for trade and resources, such as the Khanates of Kazan, Astrakhan, and Siberia. His efforts paved the way for modern Russia to become a sprawling empire. Interestingly, the term terrible in Ivan's time didn't necessarily mean bad. It meant fearsome or formidable. While his ruthless actions are undeniable, he was also a visionary leader who strengthened the Russian state. 8. Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is infamous in American history for his role in the Trail of Tears, which forcibly relocated tens of thousands of Native Americans between 1830 and 1850, leading to immense suffering and death. His presidency was also marked by a rough demeanor and questionable decision-making, including appointing unqualified friends to powerful positions. These actions have earned him a spot on many lists of the worst US presidents. Yet, despite these negative aspects, Jackson did achieve something no other president has. He paid off the national debt, making the US entirely debt-free. It's the only time in American history that this has happened. Unfortunately, his economic policies, including his opposition to a central bank, led to a severe economic downturn later in his presidency. Jackson's treatment of Native Americans was undeniably cruel, but there's an interesting twist in his personal life. After leading raids during the Creek War, which he perpetuated, Jackson adopted a young Native American boy whose mother had been killed. He raised the child as his own, though historians debate whether this was an act of compassion or a political move to gain favor among Native Americans. Regardless of his intentions, it adds complexity to the legacy of a man often remembered only for his cruelty. Napoleon Bonaparte is synonymous with military conquest and ambition. His relentless campaigns across Europe, aiming to establish French dominance, resulted in over 1.3 million civilian deaths. From the late 1790s to the early 1800s, Napoleon's desire for power wreaked havoc on much of the continent. However, Napoleon's impact wasn't all negative. One of his most significant achievements was the creation of the Napoleonic Code in 1804, which modernized French law. This set of civil laws promoted legal equality and individual rights, marking a departure from the oppressive feudal system that had dominated France for centuries. The Napoleonic Code also served as a model for legal systems around the world, influencing countries in Europe, the Americas, and beyond. Although his thirst for power led to untold suffering, Napoleon's reforms laid the groundwork for more just and equitable legal systems that continue to benefit society today. Jim Jones will forever be remembered for orchestrating the Jonestown Massacre in 1978, a mass murder-suicide that claimed over 900 lives, including many children. The event was the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act until the 9/11 attacks. However, in his early years, Jim Jones was seen as a force for good, particularly in the fight for racial equality. During the civil rights movement, Jones advocated for integration and preached that all people, regardless of race, were loved by God and should be treated with respect and kindness. His church, the People's Temple, initially attracted followers by offering a message of unity and social justice, with integrated congregations that were rare at the time. Jones's churches were involved in various community programs, working to promote racial harmony and provide support for the poor. Unfortunately, as Jones became increasingly paranoid and addicted to drugs, his vision for an inclusive, utopian society turned into a nightmare. While his actions at Jonestown were tragic, it's worth remembering that his early beliefs were rooted in genuine ideals of equality and justice. Pablo Escobar, the notorious Colombian drug lord, built a criminal empire on cocaine trafficking and violence. As the founder of the Medellin cartel, Escobar was responsible for countless deaths and played a significant role in destabilizing Colombia during the 1980s. Yet, to many Colombians, Escobar was seen as a Robin Hood figure. He used a portion of his immense wealth to help the poor, building hospitals, schools, and even housing developments. Escobar's generosity earned him the loyalty of many locals, who saw him as someone who gave back to the community despite his criminal activities. His charitable efforts were so well received that Escobar was elected to the Colombian Congress in 1982. While his legacy is one of violence and corruption, Escobar's acts of kindness toward the impoverished communities of Colombia left a lasting impression on many people. The Yakuza, Japan's organized crime syndicate, is infamous for its illegal activities, including extortion, drug trafficking, and violent enforcement. Members are often easily identified by their full-body tattoos and are feared by much of the public. However, in the aftermath of the devastating 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan, the Yakuza stepped up to help. They organized aid efforts, sending more than 25 trucks filled with essential supplies like food, water, diapers, and flashlights to areas that were hardest hit by the disaster. One Yakuza member was quoted as saying, "There are no Yakuza or regular citizens right now. We are all Japanese, and we need to help each other." While their everyday operations are rooted in crime, the Yakuza's relief efforts during one of Japan's darkest times demonstrated an unexpected sense of national solidarity. Saddam Hussein, the Iraqi dictator who led the country from 1979 to 2003, is widely regarded as one of the most brutal leaders of the 20th century. His regime was marked by violent repression, war crimes, and the use of chemical weapons against his own people. Despite this, Hussein's rule did bring about significant improvements in Iraq's infrastructure. He modernized the country by building roads, hospitals, and schools, and he promoted the development of the country's mining and oil industries. His policies also led to a major reduction in illiteracy rates, as compulsory education was introduced across Iraq. Interestingly, under Saddam's rule, Iraqi women experienced greater equality in many aspects of life, including marriage, divorce, inheritance, and the workforce. While his regime was undoubtedly oppressive, these social and economic improvements left a lasting mark on Iraq's development. Al Capone, one of America's most infamous mobsters, is best known for his involvement in organized crime during the Prohibition era, including orchestrating the St. Valentine's Day massacre. However, during the Great Depression, Capone took a surprising step to help the people of Chicago. In 1930, Capone opened a soup kitchen that fed thousands of starving citizens every day. His soup kitchen operated with no restrictions, providing hot meals to anyone who needed them. Unlike government programs that required paperwork or proof of need, Capone's kitchen served anyone who showed up, no questions asked. One observer famously described Capone as an ambidextrous giant who kills with one hand and feeds with the other. Though his criminal activities were destructive, Capone's charitable efforts during the Great Depression helped many Chicagoans survive during one of the hardest times in American history. Adolf Hitler, perhaps the most reviled figure in history, is synonymous with the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust. His brutal regime led to the deaths of millions, and his name has become a byword for evil. However, there is one surprising aspect of Hitler's legacy that often goes overlooked: his commitment to animal welfare. Under Hitler's rule, the Nazi regime passed the Animal Protection Act in 1933, which was one of the earliest laws to protect animals from cruelty. The act included regulations for animals in circuses, zoos, and laboratories, as well as bans on hunting methods considered inhumane. Hitler himself, who was a vegetarian for part of his life, had a well-documented love for animals, particularly his beloved German shepherd, Bundy. His government's animal rights laws were groundbreaking at the time, establishing standards that are still reflected in modern animal protection legislation. While Hitler's ideology was fundamentally inhumane, these laws show that even the most notorious figures can enact policies that have a positive impact, however unintended. Despite their heinous reputations, these historical figures have also contributed to society in unexpected ways. Their good deeds, often overlooked or overshadowed by their more nefarious actions, serve as a reminder that even the most evil individuals are complex and multifaceted. History, it seems, is never black and white, and these figures stand as proof that good and evil can sometimes coexist in surprising ways. By the way, if there's any topic in this video that catches your eye, just comment down below and let me know if you want me to make a separate video on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Wow, you guys have made it till the end of the video. And remember, according to YouTube, the best way to help the channel in the algorithm is to watch another one of my videos right after this one. So go ahead and check it out. Thanks for sticking around. See you soon. Until then, peace.